The ninth sister is a prodigious beastmaster. Trash. Ninth young master. In the boundless sunset forest, close to the border of Luobei City, a thin and weak young person was curled up with her back against a big tree. She looked at the people who were gradually approaching her. "You, what do you want to do?" "I just paid the protection fee yesterday." She had handed over the only 3 gold coins she had yesterday. These people had tricked her into coming here early this morning, saying that they had seen her brother here. Her brother had been summoned to the capital by his family. She had not seen him for several years. In the past few years, she had been beaten up almost every day. Protection money? Ninth young master, even protection money can't save you. Who asked you to have a genius brother? If he comes back and finds out that we bullied you, will we still have a good life? That's right. Besides, you're just a piece of trash. What right do you have to be a direct descendant of the Beiting family? It's so embarrassing. If I were you, I would have committed suicide a long time ago. How can you still have the face to live? Cut the crap and settle it quickly. Don't let anyone see you. The leader of the group, a tall man, kicked Beiting Huang's back. The pain made Beiting Huang cry. They were both level 2 to level 3 spiritual practitioners. She was just a piece of trash. She could not even fight back. "Who is it? Who told you to kill me?" Beiting Huang asked timidly. She held her head and did not dare to look at the group of fierce-looking young men. "It doesn't matter if I tell you," the tall man chuckled. They were all branches of the Beiting family and liked to see the 3 generations of the Beiting family run away like rats in front of them. However, they were born useless. They could not even gather spiritual energy, let alone cultivation talent. Young Master Han said that a distinguished guest is coming to the capital. He was afraid that a useless person like you would embarrass the family in front of the distinguished guest, so he asked us to punish you. As long as Beiting Huang died, they still had 50 gold coins to take. The punches and kicks became more and more concentrated. It was more painful than directly killing someone with a knife. Beiting Huang curled up her body and covered her head and chest. She couldn't even cry. There was too much hatred in her heart. She would rather die than beg for mercy. Someone kicked her in the neck. She felt a sharp pain and fainted. This kid died just like that? A short youth nudged Beiting Huang with his foot and spat on her. She really can't take a beating. Let's see if there's anything valuable on her. The tall man clapped his hands and stomped on the ground twice, afraid that he would be tainted by Beiting Huang's bad luck. After all, this kid was the 9th young master of the family. Her clothes were not bad, but who would dare to wear her clothes? The short man stepped on her body with his foot and did not find anything hidden. He called out, "Bad luck." He pulled her sleeve left and right. Unexpectedly, he saw a bracelet on her wrist. The bracelet was purple in color, and its material was indistinguishable. There were ancient and complicated patterns on it, which was not very eye-catching. However, this was the only thing left on Beiting Huang. They had spent a lot of effort to kill Beiting Huang. Were they going to return empty-handed? "Hey, this brat! She's still hiding such a good thing!" The tall man came forward. The short man grabbed Beiting Huang's wrist, and the tall man went to pull out the bracelet. The bracelet was stuck to her wrist and could not be removed. "Who has a knife? Chop off her hand." Such a good bracelet could be exchanged for a few gold coins. A knife was handed to him. Originally, a knife could have killed Beiting Huang, but how could a knife be more exciting than punching and kicking her? Rebirth of the Phoenix. The tall man took the knife and slashed at Beiting Huang's wrist. The knife was very blunt. With one slash, it only left a very deep wound on Beiting Huang's wrist. It didn't cut the bone. F***, it's for cutting grass, right? Blood gushed out and flowed down her wrist. No one noticed that the inconspicuous bracelet could still absorb blood. The gurgling blood was all absorbed by it. Another slash. At this moment, Beiting Huang's closed eyes suddenly opened. A tangible light flashed in her eyes, and the knife froze in midair under her gaze. You're courting death! She did not know what had happened to her wrist, but the sudden danger made her instinctively straighten her waist and kick, causing the knife to slip out of the tall man's hand. Beiting Huang made a move, and the knife spun in the air and pierced through the neck of the man behind the tall man. With a bang, the knife stabbed into the tree behind him, 3 inches deep, and blood splattered 3 feet. Beiting Huang? Was this still Beiting Huang? Was it that Trash? How could Trash have such skills? This turn of events shocked everyone so much that their eyeballs almost fell out. Someone raised his head and shouted, "A zombie is coming back to life!" The short man holding onto Beiting Huang's wrist immediately stepped back in fear. The tree root under his feet tripped him, and he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Beiting Huang got up from the ground. She looked at her cut wrist and saw that it was bleeding profusely. She tore off a piece of cloth from her clothes and slowly wrapped it around the wound. Her expression was cold. The flesh on her wound was exposed, and her bones could be seen. It was unknown how painful it was, but she did not even frown. While she was bandaging her wound, these people wanted to escape. Beiting Huang sneered and swept her cold gaze across everyone's faces. The blood in these people's bodies seemed to have frozen. They moved closer to each other and did not dare to disperse. They had a feeling that they could not escape from this person. Beiting Huang raised her foot and stepped on the short man's chest. She raised her head slightly and looked down with disdain. "Do you want me to die?" She had changed. This good-for-nothing 9th young master had changed. She thought about how she had clearly died before, but suddenly came back to life. After she came back to life, she was like a different person. In the past, the 9th young master was timid and did not even dare to speak loudly. She did not even dare to complain when she was beaten up. Now she looked so scary. "Do you think you guys can do it?" Her eyebrows were tall and her eyes were cold. Her entire body emitted a terrifying aura, and she looked at these people as if they were ants. She was originally the king of the 21st century's dark mercenary world. Her code name was Phoenix, and she dominated the world. This time, if it wasn't to risk her life to save her companions, no one could take her life. At the moment of her death, the purple crystal jade that accompanied her when she was born wrapped around her. When she woke up, she saw a large knife slashing at her wrist. This was not her body, but from now on, it would belong to her. No one could touch her at all. The tip of her foot pressed against the short man's heart. Crack! The short man's body convulsed and his head hit the ground heavily. He died! This was too scary. Everyone approached the tall man. They originally wanted to escape in all directions, but the person in front of them did not have a trace of spiritual qi fluctuation on her body. One look from her could kill a person. 9th young master, spare me. You don't come over, don't come over. The tall man was the most afraid. He was surrounded by people and retreated. Behind him was the vast and boundless sunset forest. Magical beasts roamed freely inside. If they walked in, any magical beast of the 1st or 2nd level could jump out and eat them until there was nothing left. If you come over again, we'll fight you to the death. Beiting Huang snorted and kicked the ground with her toes. A branch flew straight at the tall man's throat. The man fell backward with his eyes wide open. Let's fight it out with her. This scene was too challenging. No one could withstand the terrifying pressure of death. The remaining 4 people formed a team and pounced on Beiting Huang. These level 2 and level 3 spiritual practitioners were supported by spiritual energy, so their combat power was more than 10 times higher than that of ordinary people. But so what? With strange footwork, Beiting Huang moved as fast as the wind. The 4 of them only saw a blur before she landed behind them. Before they could react, a leg swung over. 2 of them felt as if a heavy weight had been smashed on their backs. The powerful impact made their spines unable to withstand it. Their bodies went limp, and they fell forward. They fell to the ground and foamed at the mouth. Ninth young master, spare me, spare me. the remaining 2 people still had some awareness. So what if they were level 2 spiritual practitioners? How could the person in front of them be trash? They had all been deceived by the 9th young master. She must have been pretending in the past. She had deceived the entire Luobang city. We know who wants your life. It's not us. We're also working for someone. The 2 of them said one after another. It's young Master Han. He used 50 gold coins to buy your life. Ha ha ha! An arrogant voice pierced through the periphery of the forest. She threw her head back and laughed. She did not expect to hear such a funny joke after her rebirth. 50 gold coins for her life. Was her life so cheap? The 2 of them lowered their eyes and knelt in front of her feet. Their bodies were trembling as they kept begging for mercy. Please spare us, Ayur. Mercy? Her delicate eyebrows were shrouded in the shadows cast by the tree branches, like a demon that had broken through a barrier. Her expression remained unchanged, but her heart was surging with emotions. At that moment, memories flooded into her body like a tidal wave. She finally figured out her identity. She had been reborn in the body of a piece of trash. This piece of trash was from a powerful aristocratic family that shocked all the countries on this continent. She was a direct descendant of the Beiting family. Her name was Beiting Huang, and she was a girl. For some reason she had disguised herself as a boy. The bracelet on her arm that these people had coveted and wanted to cut off her arm was actually a high-level spiritual weapon to hide her gender. These people were all her brothers. She happened to be involved in the brothers' fighting and the family strife. Spare their lives? Didn't the original owner beg for mercy before she died? Why didn't they spare her? In her body, there was a slight fluctuation of emotions that did not belong to her. Beiting Huang knew very well that these were emotions that belonged to the original owner. She was indignant. Beiting Huang comforted her softly in her heart. Don't worry. Since I've been reborn in you, I'll avenge you. I won't let you die in vain. As soon as she finished speaking, her emotions dissipated. It seemed that from this moment on, she had truly become Beiting Huang. The Night King. Seeing that the look in Beiting Huang's eyes was getting fiercer and fiercer, the 2 of them knew that they wouldn't be able to get away with it today. Since begging for mercy didn't work, they began to threaten her. Beiting Huang, you and I are both members of the Beiting family. Even if you're a direct descendant, you can't kill us from the family branch. Is that so? Beiting Huang raised her hand to look at her injured left wrist. Her eyes were cold, as if she was not looking at a part of her body. She raised her head and squinted at the sunset forest. The sky was getting dark, and she had to rush back to the city. In this sunset forest, thousands of people die every day. This was the reason why they had tricked Beiting Huang into coming here. She raised her hand and slapped the top of their heads. As the king of the dark mercenary world in her previous life, she had always grasped the most straightforward killing methods. The 2 of them softened in front of her and slowly slid to the ground without even closing their eyes. This method of killing was clean, neat, and pleasing to the eye. Come out! With a clear shout, Beiting Huang stood where she was. She clapped her hands gently and did not turn around, waiting for those people to appear behind her. These people were brazenly watching from the side. What were their intentions? She never liked to be passive. Attacking was the best defense. What did she have that made her so arrogant? Xianxia didn't understand. He stared at the young man's thin and weak back as he slowly walked around from behind her. His long robe dragged on the ground, but it didn't cause any dust. On his black brocade robe, layers of red spider lilies were embroidered on the back with golden threads. They bloomed luxuriously, but no one dared to look at them deeply. Her long silver hair fluttered even though there was no wind. She could feel the suffocation brought about by the powerful pressure just by looking at a side profile. Out of habit, she wanted to reach for the gun on her waist. With a slight movement of her fingers, she could no longer move. She felt an unprecedented sense of danger. This person was terrifying to the extreme. No, she could only say that she was weak to the extreme. There had never been a moment like this. She yearned to be strong like in her previous life, and to not be threatened by anyone because she was strong. People surrounded her from all sides. Unlike the youth just now, the pressure was dense like a net, enveloping Beiting Huang. She glanced sideways. There were 2 guards on her left and right. Their faces were as stiff as paper. They were dressed in black brocade robes with small golden flowers embroidered on them, making them look even stranger. These people were empty-handed, but Beiting Huang did not dare to underestimate them. On the contrary, she knew very well that these people were so powerful that she did not dare to imagine. But so what? If these people wanted her life, even if she died, she would not let them have an easy time. She closed her eyes. In this world she was so weak. She hated the feeling of being threatened. It made her extremely unsafe. She was born to look down on others, not be looked down on. As long as she could survive today, no matter how wonderful this world was, she, Beiting Huang, would stand at the top of this world and be admired by everyone. She would not be like now, where danger lurked everywhere and she had to struggle to survive. How dare you? Kneel before His Highness the Night King. Kneel? She had never even knelt before the heavens and the earth. She did not know this posture. Beiting Huang looked at the voice from the corner of her eye. A handsome young man with slender eyes on her right was staring at her fiercely, as if he would kill her if she didn't kneel. Overwhelming beauty. The one who spoke was Xianxia, one of the Flaming Knight's 4 great guards. Xianxia had never seen such a person before. In this central continent, there had never been a person like His Highness the Night King who could stand steadily. This young man was about 14 or 15 years old. There was not a trace of spiritual energy fluctuation on his body. One look and one could tell that he was trash. If not for the fact that her methods of killing were especially special, would His Highness the Night King be interested in trash? He wouldn't even spare her a glance. He reminded her kindly, and she glared at him. Just as Xianxia was about to scold him, the Night King raised his hand slightly. No need. The voice was light and beautiful. It was originally a pleasant voice, but it made people feel abnormally cold. It was as if it had been frozen by the 9 nether spring. A white, bony hand reached out from the netherworld and grabbed a person's throat, locking their soul. However, as soon as he spoke, the pressure decreased and the blood in his body began to flow again. Beiting Huang suddenly raised her head and looked at this person. She knew that this person was very scary, but no matter how afraid she was, if she died in the hands of these people, she had to die in peace. It was an indescribable face. His silver waist-length hair fluttered in the wind, and his exquisite facial features were difficult to distinguish. A pair of cold, mountain-like eyebrows flew diagonally to his sideburns, adding a hint of heroic spirit to his beautiful and almost strange face. He had a pair of long and narrow red phoenix eyes, and his purple eyes were overflowing with light. The corners of his eyes were big and upturned, like a slanted line outlined by brush and ink, extremely flirtatious. His face was like jade, and his skin was as fine as porcelain. Even the women in this world rarely had such good skin color like his. It was faintly bright, as if it was coated with a layer of moonlight. His nose bridge was tall and straight, but his lips were as soft as cherry blossom petals. The gentle powder was like a wisp of cloud floating in the sky, shimmering with light. He was such a beautiful and gorgeous person, but no one dared to covet his beauty. He just stood there. Not even the light in the world dared to touch him. His oppressive aura seemed to distort space. Seeing this person was like seeing a black hole in the universe that could devour everything. He was like a heartless hand that manipulated all living beings in the 3 worlds. All living beings in the world could only kneel in front of him. He was extremely gorgeous and terrifying. Even so, Beiting Huang only glanced at him indifferently. She stubbornly raised her head and refused to be timid in front of him. So what if he was a god from heaven? He wanted her to submit? No way. Xianxia looked at the youth in front of him with interest. Very few people could withstand his pressure, let alone the youth in front of him, who was a piece of trash who could not gather spiritual energy. This young man's killing intent was awe-inspiring. He had not experienced life and death. If he had not crawled through a pile of dead people, he would not have been able to have this almost tangible killing intent. No wonder he wasn't afraid of him. In this world, there were not many people who were not afraid of him. In the past, there was only one, and now there was only one. They were so similar. Xianxia's deep eyes glanced at her. His gaze swept across her cut wrist. He gave Xianxia a look. The black robe embroidered with spider lilies slowly slid across the ground covered in fallen leaves. In the blink of an eye, that person disappeared. "Here, this is for you." Xianxia flipped his wrist and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. He threw it at Beiting Huang. Beiting Huang did not understand what was going on and raised her hand to catch it. Before she could ask, Xianxia had already chased after the person. The other 3 people also left. Change. The jade bottle contained a few medicinal pills. She brought them to her nose and smelled them. A refreshing fragrance assaulted her nose. Although she did not know much about medicinal pills, she knew that they should be good things. She couldn't help but think of that person. His subordinate said that he was the Night King. She narrowed her eyes and thought for a moment. She searched through her previous master's memories. The Night King was the current 3rd prince. Shouldn't this person be in the capital? Why did he come to this small border town? Beiting Huang shook her head. This had nothing to do with her. She raised her injured wrist. The wound was very deep, and her bones were slightly damaged. However, she had suffered serious injuries before, so this injury was nothing to her. However, when she thought of the person who had spent 50 gold coins to buy her life, her cousin, young Master Han, she poured out a pill and put it in her mouth. It was a very good thing. It melted in her mouth, and a warm and cool feeling spread to her limbs and bones. When it reached her wrist, the pain stopped, and a numbing and itchy feeling came. Beiting Huang removed the bandage on her wrist and raised her hand to take a look. The wound was healing at a visible speed. In any era, such elixirs were very valuable, right? Beiting Huang narrowed her eyes. No matter what the Night King's motive was for giving her such a good pill, at least this bottle of pills was good. Beiting Huang stuffed the jade bottle under her waist, lifted her robe, and walked towards the city gate of Luobei City. On the horizon, a cloud made the tall and majestic city gate look exceptionally magnificent. Beiting Huang stood there and looked up at the 3 large words, Luobei City, on the city gate tower. This was a southern town on this continent. It was still cold in the winter. The cold wind did not make her feel cold. On the contrary, her blood was boiling. She was supposed to die, but now, she was alive. How could she not be excited that she was going to live again in a strange world? Even a useless body could satisfy her. In her dictionary, there was no such thing as trash. Her life would always be exciting. She raised his foot and walked into the city. When the soldiers guarding the city saw a person coming from afar, they raised their heads and puffed out their chests as they strode over. They couldn't help but wipe their eyes fiercely. They looked closer and closer. They didn't see wrongly. It was that trash. It was the 9th young master of the Beiting family, but he seemed different. Look, isn't that the 9th young master of the Beiting family? Am I seeing things? Yes, it doesn't seem like him. When did the 9th young master of the Beiting family walk with her head held high? But this time, she was wearing a black robe without a robe. Step by step, she walked on the wide street with firm footwork. Her aura was oppressive, making her look handsome, elegant, and extraordinary. Yes, it's the 9th young master. I didn't see wrongly. I didn't expect the 9th young master to be so handsome. I've never taken a closer look before. That's right. As a man, he has grown up and is full of energy. It looks like he has more or less changed. The useless 9th young master was known by almost everyone in Luobei City. Luobei City was a small border town affiliated with the Beiting family. However, it was still majestic. Tall houses, wide streets, and paved roads made of white jade were so wide that 10 carriages could walk side by side at the same time. There was a majestic aura everywhere. As Beiting Huang walked, she looked around the city curiously. The Beiting family lived in the center of the city. They were only a block away. Ninth young master, quickly hide. Don't go back. Young Master Ming has brought people to look for you. A girl ran towards her and panted. She has a fiancé. Seeing this girl, Beiting Huang could not help but raise her hand to her forehead. It was none other than her fiancé, Mu Qingling. This body of hers hid many secrets. Not only did it hide her gender, but she also had a fiancé who had been engaged to her since she was young. However, this girl was really good to her. She was a famous beauty in Luobei City. Her cheeks were smooth and her eyebrows were like a painting. On the other hand, Beiting Huang was famous for being a good-for-nothing. Everyone in Luobei City had bullied her, but not only did her fiancé not bully her, but she also protected her in every way. Qingling, why did you come out so late at night? Beiting Huang helped Mu Qingling up. However, the girl took a step back in panic and lowered her head with a red face. Beiting Huang didn't know what to say. She quickly retracted her hand and coughed lightly. She had to remember her identity in the future. She was the 9th young master of the Beiting family. She was a man. A man. I heard that the young master brought people out of the city to look for you, so I went out to take a look. Mu Qingling's face was as red as the clouds in the sky when Beiting Huang grabbed her wrist. Beiting Huang smiled. She had already seen the people on the other side of the street. She had no choice but to reach out and pull Mu Qingling's sleeve, gently pulling her behind her. Beiting Ming had already arrived with 5 or 6 people. They were all guards of the Beiting family. They came over aggressively. He was going out of the city to see if Beiting Huang was dead. When he looked up and saw Beiting Huang waiting in the middle of the road, he couldn't help but be stunned. Why wasn't this trash dead yet? Beiting Huang actually raised his head and puffed out his chest as he watched them come over. Who gave her such a strong backing? When he saw Mu Qingling hiding behind her and secretly looking over, Beiting Ming was furious. Oh, I was wondering what was going on. It turns out that Miss Mu is protecting you. I say, 9th young master, you're completely useless. You're a man's shame. What's the point of hiding behind a woman? Beiting Ming kept glancing at Mu Qingling. None of the youths in Luobei City disliked Mu Qingling. It was just that this girl was too beautiful. Mu Qingling hated the way Beiting Ming's eyes were glued to her. She clenched her fists. She was clearly the one hiding behind the 9th young master. These people always liked to bully the 9th young master. Young Master Ming, what do you mean by that? You clearly know me. I'm not even a spiritual warrior. Since she was young, she knew that Beiting Huang could not gather spiritual qi, so he could not cultivate. She was afraid that others would mock Beiting Huang. Beiting Huang sneered and took a step forward. With just one step, his ghostly figure flashed in front of Beiting Ming, who was about 10 steps away from him. He grabbed Beiting Ming's chest and said, "Trash? What's wrong with being trash? What's wrong with being trash that even you are jealous of? However, you want to covet my people? I think you're tired of living." She gritted her teeth and slid her hand up his chest and onto his neck. With a cracking sound, Beiting Ming let out a miserable cry of pain. His dantian, which was about to gather strength, was empty. There was no spiritual energy inside. Beiting Huang had already grabbed him and thrown him backward, landing on the servant following behind. If it weren't for the fact that they were in public, he wouldn't have crippled him. Instead, he would have taken his life. The servants led by Beiting Ming wouldn't dare to make a move against Beiting Huang on their own accord. Even Beiting Ming, who was a collateral relative of Beiting Han, was far from being a direct descendant of Beiting Huang. Beiting Huang, you! Beiting Ming tried to gather strength again, but his dantian was still empty. He was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. "Beiting Huang, you... Who dares to call me trash again?" He didn't dare to say the word trash again. The look in her eyes was as sharp as a knife. "From now on, whoever dares to say the word trash in front of me will die." When Beiting Huang turned around, she saw Mu Qingling looking at her with a pair of starry eyes. When their eyes met, Mu Qingling's face was as red as the clouds. She lowered her head and twisted her hands helplessly. What was this? A secret love? Beiting Huang felt helpless. "Let's go. It's getting late. I'll send you back." After she finished speaking, she held Mu Qingling's hand and was about to leave. However, Beiting Ming had already led the guards to block Beiting Huang's way fearlessly. "Beiting Huang, you can't leave. Didn't Beiting Shu and the others go to the Sunset Forest with you? Where are they?" Beiting Shu? Only then did Beiting Huang remember that the tall leader who had died in the Sunset Forest was Beiting Shu. He had taken a knife and wanted to chop off her hand. "They're all dead." Dead? Although Beiting Ming couldn't gather any spiritual qi, his dantian was still intact, so he wasn't afraid. The most important thing now was, how did Beiting Huang come back alive? How did he die? Shouldn't the one who deserved to die be Beiting Huang? "They died trying to save me," said Beiting Huang. "We encountered a level 3 magical beast there. They stayed behind to deal with the magical beast. As you know, I'm useless. I couldn't help much if I stayed, so I left first. Who knew that the magical beast was a mutated magical beast? Although it was only level 3, it was very powerful. In the end, they all died." You... The word trash was on the tip of Beiting's tongue, but he swallowed it down. It was a terrible feeling. "You didn't even collect the corpses. You came back alone?" Not only was this man weak, but he was also afraid of death. But what should he do? Beiting Huang seemed to have changed. When Beiting Ming met her gaze, the murderous intent in his eyes was so intense. Beiting Ming turned his head away and said angrily to the guards behind him, "Go to the edge of the Sunset Forest and take a look. I'll go back and report this." After all, so many people had died, and they were all descendants of their families. He didn't believe Beiting Huang at all. This trash had changed. Although he couldn't gather spiritual energy, he was much more agile. He had to go back and tell young Master Han. Beiting Huang sneered. She held Mu Qingling's hand and walked towards the Mu residence. Mu Qingling's father was the city lord of Luobei City. He used to be an insignificant official in the imperial capital. It was because of his marriage with the Beiting family that he became the city lord of Luobei City. 9th Young Master. Beiting Huang took big strides, and Mu Qingling had to jog to keep up with him. Seeing that Beiting Huang did not say anything along the way, Mu Qingling thought that he was in a bad mood. "No one will say that about you again in the future. You were very awesome today." After the girl finished speaking, she was so embarrassed that she could not raise her head. Not to mention a man. Even a normal woman like Beiting Huang would feel sorry for her. "Yes, in the future, when I'm strong enough, I'll protect you," said Beiting Huang. She would definitely do it in the future. She gently grabbed Mu Qingling's wrist and accidentally cut her wrist with her fingertips. She couldn't help but frown. No wonder this girl wasn't strong. She was actually poisoned. Who was it that dared to poison her? An idea flashed through Beiting Huang's mind, and she sneered. Mu Qingling's biological mother had passed away early, and her father had married a legitimate daughter of the Nangong family branch and given birth to a son and a daughter. He probably couldn't tolerate this legitimate daughter of his first wife, right? However, Beiting Huang's eyes flashed coldly. How dare he attack her people? "I'll protect you." The mansions of the city lord's mansion and the Beiting family were located on either side of the central axis. It was already late at night, and lanterns had been lit at the entrance of the city lord's mansion. A few servants guarding the door were dozing off. When they heard footsteps, they raised their heads and glanced at the two of them. They did not even blink. and went back to dozing off. They did not seem to have any intention of opening the door. "Ninth young master, let's go in through that door." Mu Qingling pursed her lips. She was used to this kind of contempt, but she still felt very uncomfortable when the servants looked down on Beiting Huang. Beiting Huang nodded. She had no intention of making things difficult for this girl. There were 2 old women guarding the corner door. They were eating melon seeds. When they saw Mu Qingling and Beiting Huang coming together, their eyes scanned the 2 of them like a radar, as if they had done something shameful. The 2 of them did not open the door. Instead, they guarded it. "Miss, it's past the hour. The door is already locked. You can't enter today." But if I don't go in, what will I do at night?" Mu Qingling knew the rules of the family. Her stepmother said that it was for her own good and was especially strict with her. She was so anxious that she jumped twice on the ground and was about to cry. "What about the key? The lock is dead. Aren't the 2 of you alive?" With a glance, the 2 old women felt the air around them turn cold. The 2 of them were out of their minds. They thought that it was late at night, but they didn't expect a good-for-nothing like Beiting Huang to be so powerful with just one look. They couldn't help but purse their lips and say disdainfully, "Hey, son-in-law, let's not talk about the fact that our eldest daughter hasn't married yet. Even if she has, it's none of your business." "Nonsense!" Mu Qingling was so embarrassed that blood was about to drip from her face. She was about to step forward and argue with the 2 old women, when Beiting Huang grabbed her wrist and blocked her behind her. "Eldest miss, what nonsense did we spout? If it wasn't for the sake of being with the 9th young master tonight, how could you have missed the time to return to the residence?" One of the old women with a ruffian's mouth spat out melon seed shells as she said, "There has never been a young lady like you who stayed out all night in the entire Luobang city. Aren't you afraid of tarnishing the Mu family's reputation?" Was this a servant? Beiting Huang had learned something new. Mu Qingling was so angry that tears came out of her eyes. Beiting Huang gently patted her shoulder and raised her other hand to slap the old woman's face. She used one hand to do the gentlest thing in the world, while her other hand did the cruelest thing. She slapped the old woman on both sides, and the old woman staggered and fell to the ground. "Ah!" Mu Qingling jumped up in fright and pointed at the old woman on the ground. She shouldn't be Arya." "Don't worry, she won't die." Beiting Huang comforted her with a smile. However, she would probably never hear again. Her slap had not only injured her face, there was a little hidden force in her hand. This person's eardrums should have been broken. The other old woman was standing next to him, her legs trembling violently. Beiting Huang glanced at her from the corner of her eye and said in fear, I'll open the door." She obediently opened the door and ran to the backyard before Beiting Huang and Mu Qingling could enter. She and the old woman on the ground had been ordered by Second Miss to wait for Mu Qingling at the corner door. Not only would they not let her in, but they would also humiliate her as much as possible. Seeing this, Mu Qingling couldn't help but worry. Beiting Huang patted her shoulder lightly. "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." "She's mine." Mu Wanyue arrived very quickly. She was the second young mistress of the City Lord Manor, and Mu Qingling's half-sister. She was a 4th-grade spiritual practitioner, with a face as beautiful as a flower and jade. She was also the disciple of the only mid-grade alchemist in Luobang City. It could be said that she was a proud daughter of heaven. Beiting Huang sat in Mu Qingling's dilapidated courtyard. The 4 walls were empty. There was a bed, a table, and a chair. She sat on the only chair, resting her elbows on the table and tapping her fingers on the table. Her beautiful fiancé was not like the legitimate daughter of the City Lord Manor at all. Other concubines' daughters were living better than her. Mu Wanyue was the real daughter of the first wife. She was wearing a flowery dress and a skirt with hundreds of flowers trailing behind her. A large group of maids and old maids followed behind her. When she rushed in aggressively, she saw Beiting Huang sitting next to the broken table, like a dragon sitting in the imperial palace. Her foot that was about to walk in stopped in midair. Ninth, young master? Why are you here? Mu Wanyue's face was especially fake, and her words were also very fake. Beiting Huang did not believe that she did not know why she was here. Beiting Huang looked at Mu Wanyue from the corner of her eyes. This woman was not bad looking, but she was a little inferior to her beautiful fiancé. Mu Qingling placed a cup of hot tea beside Beiting Huang's hand. She held it in her hand and gently twirled it. The edge of the thick porcelain teacup was missing a hole. She had never used such a lousy thing in her previous life. Mu Qingling couldn't help but blush. She was at a loss and didn't know what to do. However, she saw Beiting Huang take a sip without any hesitation. Beiting Huang's face was really beautiful. His skin was even more delicate than a woman's, and his eyebrows were exquisite, especially his eyes. They were as black as the stars in the winter night. His nose was like a jade statue, and his lips were like flower petals. In the entire Luobeng city, there was no man who was more beautiful than him. The two women stared at Beiting Huang. Ahem! The old woman behind Mu Wanyue coughed lightly and reminded her. Second miss, eldest miss injured Mother Han. Only then did Mu Wanyue recall that the only person sitting in this room was a good-for-nothing, and she had even been bewitched by his appearance. She was instantly enraged and raised her hand to point at Mu Qingling. On Madame's orders, arrest her. Bang! The teacup was slammed heavily on the table, and Beiting Huang raised an eyebrow. Mu Wanyue felt as if a sharp sword was stabbing at her. Was this the good-for-nothing? Her eldest sister's fiancé was the good-for-nothing who couldn't gather spiritual energy and was chased around like a dog all day. I want to see who dares to touch her! Beiting Huang pointed her index finger at Mu Qingling. She's mine! I want to see who dares to touch her. Ninth young master, you're exaggerating. Mu Wanyue sneered. Why wouldn't we dare to move? Attack! Whoosh! As soon as Mu Wanyue's voice fell, the teacup in front of Beiting Huang shot towards Mu Wanyue's lower abdomen like an arrow. Mu Wanyue was a fourth-grade spiritual practitioner after all. Although she was caught off guard, her reaction was exceptionally sharp. She was stuck at the door and could not dodge in time. She hurriedly pulled a maidservant beside her to block her. With a dull thud, a small teacup hit the maidservant's chest as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. The maidservant did not even have time to groan before she collapsed to the ground like a broken sack. She was dead. How was this possible? Mu Wanyue couldn't believe it. She squatted down and checked the maid's breathing. There was no longer any breathing. She stood up and said in exasperation, Beiting Huang, you killed my maid? The person I want to kill is you, not your maid, Beiting Huang said slowly. Then she turned to Mu Qingling and said gently, Good girl, get me another glass of water.